The game's starting to come together. We have a ship that can fire. We have asteroids to be our enemies, and the only problem is those two things don't really interact with each other whatsoever. They just sort of fly underneath the asteroids. My bullets have no effect, and let's go ahead and fix that. So let's go ahead and make some explosions. So the first thing we need to do to have some explosions is to create the sprites for the explosion. I didn't spend too much time on this, and you can take a look at the 5 frames I created. Uh, you could probably do something a little bit better yourself. I just wanted to go ahead and have something so we could get it done. You can actually use the slider on the right hand side to see it sort of at different speeds. Sort of the speed that you see it at normally is a little too fast, so you can take it down to about 7 frames per second to see it better. At this point you can go ahead and export it as a zip file, and you can import the first sprite into Scratch. So here we are back in Scratch. I'm going to go ahead and import my new sprite. I'm in my folder already. I'm going to import the first one called Sprite 0. And I'm going to go ahead and get the info for it. And I should be doing this. I should have been doing this all along, but I haven't been. So let's go ahead and fix that. I'm going to call this explosion. And while I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and click on my ship sprite. And let's just go ahead and call it player. The nice thing about Scratch, it'll automatically change any reference to that over in the code. So here we have our explosion sprite. It's just the first one. So let's go ahead and add in its other costumes. So we'll click on the costume tab, go to upload, and I'll grab the first one. I'll hold down shift and I'll click on the last one and I'll press open. Now we have all 5 in here, and we're actually going to go ahead and program it real fast. So let's go back to scripts. I will do when the flag is clicked. You'll see it's on the screen right now, and I don't want it on the screen until I actually need it. So the first thing I need to do is go ahead and hide it. So that's all I'm going to do on it for now. I'm actually going to jump back to the player sprite, and I'm thinking that what we need to do is we need to make it so that when the player contacts an asteroid, that the explosion replaces the player. So when the player goes away and instead we have an explosion. So I'm going to do that on the player sprite. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to control, and I'm going to say, events. When I go to when the green flag is clicked, then I'll go to control, I'll grab a forever, and I need to sense when an asteroid makes contact with the ship. So we're going to go to the sensing category, and the very first one is touching. Actually, I forgot a step. We'll go back to control, and I'm actually looking for an if-then statement. So forever, what I'm going to say is, if the ship makes contact with an asteroid, then I want to have an explosion. So if, I'll go back to sensing, touching. So if touching, and I need to change the parameter to large asteroid. So if the player ship comes in contact with a large asteroid, then I need something to actually happen. So what I need to happen are a couple of things. First off, I need the ship to disappear because it's now been destroyed. So that's easy enough. I'll go to looks and I'll find hide. So if touching large asteroid, then I need you to hide. The other thing I need to happen is I need the explosion to appear. So let's go ahead and go back to control, and we have this clone that we used last time for the asteroids. We're going to create a clone, but for the parameter not of myself, of the explosion. So forever, if the ship touches a large asteroid, first thing that happens is the ship hides, then it creates a clone of the explosion. So let's jump back to the explosion. And now we're going to say when I start as a clone, because all the explosions we're actually going to see are going to be clones. This first one is just hidden. It's our parent object, just like the asteroid had a parent object. Well, I know for a fact that the explosion is hidden because the parent object is hidden, so it retains that value. So let's go ahead and make the first thing that happens when I start as a clone is let's go ahead and show it. So let's just see what we have so far. Let's click the green flag. Okay, so I made contact with the asteroid and the explosion showed itself, but only the first frame because I haven't animated it yet. Also, I want to point out, let's do it one more time. I'm going to move. Oh, what's happening here? When I press the green flag, The ship's not there. And that's because I programmed the ship to hide after it touched a large asteroid, and I haven't given it the command to show itself. So what I should do is over here in sort of my very first block of script, I'll go ahead and I'll say go to 0, 0, and underneath I'll go ahead and I'll have it show itself. We didn't need that before because we had never hidden it, but now that we've hidden it, when a certain thing happens, I need it to show back up. So here we are. So I'm going to come over here and notice that when I got hit by the explosion, even though I was way over here, the explosion was still over here. So a couple things we have to work on right away. Let's go ahead and animate it first. So let's go ahead and typically before, like with the ship, when I was animating it and having it switch costumes, I was using a forever block, but I don't really want this to continually change costumes forever. I only want it to go through its costumes one time and then go away. So let's go ahead and grab a repeat block that's got an actual value that we can change. And we're going to go ahead and say wait, probably not for a whole second, probably something closer to 0.1 seconds. And then we'll say go to next costume. So let's try that. I'm going to go ahead, I'll move the ship into an asteroid. Okay, I forgot to change it. It did it 10 times, so the actual explosion happened a couple of times through. So let's change that. I think about it, we have 5 frames. We start on the first frame, so I only need to actually change 4 times after that. Let's give that a try. There it goes. It went through all of its iterations, and now it's just sitting there. So clearly I need to, at the end of those 4 iterations, I need to hide it again so that it goes away and not doesn't just stay there forever. So let's see if we can find an asteroid to run into. Okay, it went through its animation and it went away. On to our next problem. It's not where my ship was destroyed. So how can we fix that? We need to actually move it before it goes through its routine. So before it shows itself, I need to move it to where the ship is. So I'll go back to motion, and I have the go to X and Y. So I need to move it to the ship's X and the ship's Y. And if you recall, there's a block inside the sensing category that can do that. And let's see if we can find it. There we go. So go to the X position of explosion and go to the X position of explosion. We need to change these values. So go to the X position of, let's see, of player. And now we need to go to the Y position of player. So now it will go to the X and Y position of the player. Then it will show itself. It'll change costumes 4 times, and then it will hide itself. Let's see how we're doing. I'm going to move the ship away, and now it's going through the explosion, and it's doing it at the appropriate spot. So let me prove that. So wherever I am, it's going through its motions. Okay, so we have it so that the asteroid will explode when the ship will explode when contacted by an asteroid. But now what? Unless we only want this game to be the kind of game where you get one chance and you're done, sort of a quick game. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to my player sprite. And in the script we have where if you touch an asteroid, you hide, you create the new explosion, I'm going to go ahead and add some more. I'm going to go up to the control tab, and I'm going to get the wait command. Now be really careful with how you're nesting this. Remember, we have the if touching, then we want this to be hide, create the explosion. I'm going to change this to 2 seconds. Wait 2 seconds. Then I'm going to sort of borrow this idea. I'm going to go back to go to X and Y. I'm going to make it 0, 0 again, and then tell it to show itself again. So essentially what I'm doing here is I'm resetting the game. So you get hit by an asteroid, you hide, create your explosion, wait 2 seconds, go back to 0, 0, and now show yourself again. So let's try this. So I explode, 2 seconds go by, I pop back at the 0, 0. Of course, that's going to create some problems if there happens to be an asteroid passing through. that part of space, but at this point there's not much we can do about it. So right now we have a game where we can get hit by asteroids and we will respawn indefinitely. The last step for this particular video is that we need to go ahead and have the same thing happen for the asteroids and the bullets. So I need to program the asteroid to go away when it's struck by a bullet. So at this point, why don't you go ahead and pause the video and see if you can make that happen on your own. I'm going to do it myself, and when I come back, I'll walk you through real quickly how to do it, but it's basically the same process that we just did in terms of the asteroids and the ship. So hopefully you found that pretty easy. I am back on my large asteroid sprite, and I wrote this quick piece of code. So when I start as a clone, because all of the asteroids that we actually see are clones, forever, if I'm touching the bullet, then delete this clone. You might ask, why not just hide it like we might have done before? And there's actually a good reason for that. If we hide the asteroid, even though we can't see it, it's still there, which means that the computer still has to figure out where it is, even though we can't see it. So the computer is still keeping track of it. And over time, there'll be dozens or hundreds of these invisible asteroids floating around that we can't see, but the computer is still keeping track of them, and that's going to slow the computer down. So whenever it gets hit by a bullet, it itself is going to just delete itself, and then we'll have plenty more to take its place. So let's go ahead and press this, and you'll see that when I hit them with my bullet, they go away. So a couple of things I'll mention real quick. First off, you could obviously create your own explosion for the asteroid that would look a little bit different, or you could use the same one, really. I didn't take the time to do that because I want to go ahead and finish this video, but you know how to do that now. The second thing that I noticed is that I'm not sure I like it when the bullet keeps going after it hits the asteroid. I kind of feel like the bullet should be gone. If you give it a shot, you'll figure out how to make it so the bullet disappears when that happens. So we have now created almost a full game where we can fly a ship around, we can shoot asteroids, and when we miss and they get us, we explode and we respawn. We're sort of coming up on the home stretch of the basic game. So next time, I think we should go ahead and think about things like adding a score and having a number of lives that we use up. So I'll see you then.